Hey, so we are in record mode here, and thank you very much all for joining us. This is the Technology Review Council. I'm Novo Mana, and welcome. We are into almost the month of March, and the last day of February, and I'm very, very pleased to have um, Tabulera back. So this is one of our repeat customers, if you will, our guests, but I don't want to call them a guest because they've been phenomenally good being here before, and we're very, very proud to have him back. We'll be introducing Doug Devlin and Tony Danu. Is that close? I'll get there. From Tabulera. And I think they've got some very, very interesting and brand new things to show off, which I'm very, very pleased to hear about. And so I'll just turn it over to the two of you, and away we go. So thank you all very much. Oh, and we'll be taking questions as we go. So I'll watch the chat here and pose those over there to Tony and Doug.
Great. Sounds good.
It's all yours.
Tony, maybe you want to give a little background on our slides.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll open up our slides first. Share screen, not update yet. And I'll close this down because I got it open all the way. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So Tabulera, by way of background, was founded by my fellow partner here on the call, Doug Devlin, our CEO. Doug and I worked together in technology companies for quite a while. Both of us helped build a company called TriNet, an HR outsourcing software and services firm. And Tabulera, a little bit of background, we were originally part of a software development that happened within an HR outsourcing firm Doug built called Zoomin. Doug then spun out this accounts payable automation SaaS software is a platform which has 4 different modules in it, and it be commercialized in 2019, even though the company's been around since 2012. So our headquarters are in Silicon Valley. We're over about 30 employees, and our typical marketplace is employee benefit plans within employers, brokers, consultants, human capital management platforms, benefits administration platforms, PEOs, and we have about 600,000 employees on the platform now, and average client size is about 2,000 employees. So when you look at the original 4 modules of our software, I'm gonna back up just for a second. Benefits reconciliation, consolidated invoicing, payments, and EDI are really our 4 main products within this platform. And clients mix or match any one of these. Many clients will just buy the benefits recon. Some will just buy the consolidated invoicing. Some clients buy it all. But it was founded by this team here. Primarily Doug and Janicki are on the board, and very experienced team that has combined hundreds of years, not 100 years probably total, of HR outsourcing and benefits administration background and technology. And the value proposition, if you go right to what clients and why they're buying our software, primarily around reducing hours of internal admin teams. I'm seeing somebody, I'm gonna hit the admin. I don't know if anybody else is seeing the admin. I just had to let somebody in. Sorry for the timeout there. It pops up on my screen. I didn't want to make sure we didn't miss somebody else wanting to jump into the call. But internal admin teams right now. Nova, is that you? All right, I'll continue. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Right. So when companies come and evaluate looking at our software, which Doug is going to show you a few screens of it here in a minute, internal teams are taking data from legacy systems, pulling it out in Excel spreadsheets, and having to verify employee balances versus payroll versus enrollment platforms versus carrier invoices. And this is done typically all on Excel spreadsheets. And you can imagine internal benefits administration teams spending hours on VLOOKUP and pivot tables in Excel spreadsheets, trying to find the variance. And then once they find that variance, they have to do the root cause analysis and make the calls to the carriers. So you can imagine as you go up an employee count, starting with a couple hundred employees, there's a couple hundred lines of research you have to do every payroll, weekly or monthly. And then you get up to 1,000 employees, those lines go up. And Tabulera solves that issue of research time. And then you have at the CFO controller level, you have, if you don't get it right, the carriers are pretty much indemnified after about 60 days. So if you don't go back and do root cause analysis and call the carriers and rectify it, we have examples of an HR outsourcer that uses our service where they're writing off $126,000 a quarter. And so we'll sometimes talk to the benefit admin team. Sometimes we're talking to the CFO controller, who then go back to IT teams and say, how do we fix this? Because we're writing off too much money here every quarter. And then because a lot of times in companies, they don't know how to resolve it. They have a lot of benefit admin team turnover because they get blamed for the problem. And there's not really a good process-oriented way to fix the problem until Tabulera. So, Doug, anything you'd like to add there?
No, I think that's great, Tony.
Why is my slide advancing? This is a quick example of, this is a case study of this actual client that was losing $136,000 in a quarter. Tabulera was implemented right here, and you can see how they trickle down in terms of finding and fixing variance. A quick snapshot before we do the demo right here. This is kind of where Tabulera sits within a technology platform. It pulls in the data from, let's say, an enrollment system, UKG. It pulls in the carrier invoices, and then it pulls in the data from the ADP or paycheck system, whatever the client's on. And then within our algorithms, within our software, we're parsing all that data and putting it into an easy daily worksheet that they can work from within the platform to resolve those variances that we're talking about. So with that said, I think this is a good time for Doug to take over and jump in and start showing the demo. So I'm going to stop sharing screen. Let's see, it looks like somebody was trying to get in. Oh, we have a lot more people on the call now. Good.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Tony. Let me see if I
Stop
could share.
I just stopped sharing.
Doug, before you get into this, just a very quick one, Tony,
Yeah.
on your diagram there. I want to just kind of note out that it's not just health carriers. It looked like a whole bunch of other plans that you can help to reconcile. In other words, things like life insurance and so on and so forth. So,
Correct.
I just want to make sure that everybody kind of saw that's kind of a nice expansion. Very nice.
It's really, and it's a great point. No, it's really most anything that touches, the enrollment platform or payroll platforms that are, let's say, deducted or have contributions from an employer or an employee, that, we can not just reconcile, but I'll go into here in a second how we can invoice things as part of the process. So, and maybe that's a good segue here into our dashboard. So what I'm going to show is actually as if you're maybe a large corporation and you have not just your own books to keep, not just your own benefit plans, but maybe you're sponsoring benefit plans that are going to be leveraged across other subsidiary businesses. They might be, departments, they might be locations, and you want to actually bill that subsidiary for benefits. So we have the capability of making sure that essentially you as the plan sponsor are reimbursed by either subsidiary businesses, by even your own employees. So we'll get into that here in a minute, but this is our homepage, our demo company, Alpha Bio, kind of the modules along the top. And then you can see I'm logged in as an administrator. The whole platform is completely date-driven and multi-tenant. So I can easily look down at any company and see not just what they may owe, the parent company here, but what I might still owe to the carriers on behalf of my subsidiary company. So it's a nice dashboard. It's a way that you don't have to go look in your enrollment platform to get counts of employees or subsidiary businesses. You don't have to look in your general ledger. You don't have to look in your accounts payable module either. So all right here kind of in a dashboard, including kind of the last premiums that you paid on the platform as well.
So Doug, I hate to keep bugging you with class questions, but it occurred to me. So if I bring Tabulera to the table and I have, let's say, UKG, and I have separate FEIN companies within the structure, do I borrow that from the existing UKG, or can I set myself up in your world a little differently in terms of I want combined perspectives of who these entities are?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it really depends on how you want it set up. Could be by FEIN, could be by plan. We can define what we call a billing unit.
Oh, okay.
So if that is a department that you just want to allocate journal entries to, great. If that's, an actual business that you want to bill back for benefits, that will work as well too. So maybe that's one of the first places I'll start is to look at kind of how do we get the information into the platform? Well, most carriers can either now provide a PDF or an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV, other types of formats, but really some sort of machine readable format. So we'll download the invoices from the carrier sites, or our clients, larger the employer, maybe they're doing this themselves, but in some form or fashion, we or our clients essentially are able to upload an invoice in PDF or an Excel spreadsheet or in a CSV file. That's kind of the first piece of the process. Now, we happen to also understand, as supporting the portal here, exactly how these invoices are laid out. So we parse those invoices apart and bring them into our platform. And as a result, then we can do a number of things. And I'll just go into a brief kind of overview here of our billing module. So once those invoices are in our platform, you might have some clients that are on a common invoice, or subsidiary groups that are on a common invoice. You might have some that have their own invoices. Either way, we can pull those in and essentially then generate and publish for companies, a invoice that's consolidated by billing employer, if you will, or billing unit. So I'm just going to kind of come down here to Celogen and just give you an idea. So we can produce a nice invoice that allows a billing administrator from the subsidiary company or your departments or locations of your companies to kind of come in and look what their portion of the invoice is. And again, maybe some of these are client-sponsored policies. Maybe the parent corporation sponsors some of these policies as well. It doesn't really matter. We can parse them out. And then you get all the nice billing detail that we can pull in as a result in a nice, easy to understand format. So the subsidiary companies can remit one payment, or they can also the parent company can also come in and collect the invoices, either just one invoice or all their subsidiary invoices in just one click. So we can generate an ACH file, generate an ACH debit file for the parent company to the subsidiary companies, pull that information through the parent company bank account. All the funds flow right through to the parent company. And then ultimately, we can send payments to the carriers as well too. So we can send it, by individual company, or by individual invoice, or if it's let's say a sponsored plan by the parent company, then we can just send, one payment. Along with all of the backup detail. So it's great to be able to, look at the individual ACH files that we generate. If you'd like to, look at all the gory details, we can generate control total files. But it's really important too that we can also generate all the backup files for the carriers, and that can be essentially transferred directly to the carrier via secure email or SFTP, which is a system-to-system transfer mechanism that the carriers typically support. And the nice thing there is, as you go through this process, if you're just a single employer and you don't have billing subsidiaries, that's great too. You can still follow the same process. Obviously, you skip, going out and collecting from your subsidiaries. But we can act as a common remitter so that if you'd like us to handle the remittance end of that, if you don't have ACH privileges with your bank, then we can pay the carriers, debit you once for the consolidated invoice, and then again send off those payments and the backup information to the carriers. That's I'm gonna stop right there, and before we go into reconciliation, which is another step in the process. So are there any questions that anybody has? Any comments?
I'm not seeing any questions out there, but I always have questions, you know that,
Yeah.
Doug.
Yeah.
So,
great.
okay, so
Shoot. No.
I like what you're saying about being able to generate the invoices and so on. Have you run across any carriers, maybe smaller entities that are not able to partake of what Tabulera offers, and they're either stuff coming to them or, if you will, pulling their invoices out?
We haven't had anyone, any carriers that have said, gee, they can't produce either, CSV file or an Excel spreadsheet or at least a PDF. Most of the carriers can at least generate a PDF file, which is fine. So that's something we frankly haven't run into. Now, how carriers get paid? Yes, there are carriers who say, well, we don't want to get paid except via, an ACH credit or a wire. There's sometimes different formats that they'd like to see the remittance files, the backup files with all the employee level detail go into them. Some, but most try to be extremely cooperative, as kind of surprisingly. And so they want to get paid on time. They'd like to, have employers reconcile their invoices, because remember, they're also remitting claims. They're paying for claims for sometimes employees that are left inadvertently, let's say on an invoice. Maybe a manager forgets to terminate somebody in the HRIS platform, or maybe there's turnover in certain positions in a company, and then 60 days or so, 90 days maybe at the max. That's okay if you catch it, but sometimes employers are coming back, 3, 4, 5, 6 months later, a year later, saying, hey, I just was able to reconcile things and things don't balance. And the carriers have paid out all these claims in a lot of cases, so they're not going to be super cooperative. So they'd just rather get paid on time and know that the systems are synchronized and that the employer is catching things.
So I'm going to ask it more of an HR tech question. Certainly the interfaces coming from your HR platforms to feed Tabulera is probably about the only place that I can see where you might need IT resource support. Outside of that, it looks like once you're in there and I can get the feeds to Tabulera, I really don't have any other IT support necessary.
Yeah, and a number of platforms where have API connections with to their enrollment platforms or payroll platforms, or a combination of both. Other I'd say more common, we're taking a report, maybe it's a benefits enrollment report, maybe it's a census report every month. So we're bringing in information, and those reports then get parsed. So most of the large, I'd say, outsourcers have some facility to get a report into either a PDF or an Excel format. And as long as we can get the fields, they don't have to be lined up exactly right. As long as we can get the fields, we can parse those reports apart if we don't have an API already built.
Good.
Yeah.
I think we're good to go to the reconciliation part. The fun part.
Great. Yeah. So let's go over and take a look at reconciliation for a minute. So we've had a number of versions of reconciliation. This is, I think, our third version. of our reconciliation module. And it's we try to make it pretty straightforward for somebody who's not an accountant, right? Accountants are doing bank reconciliations all the time and general ledger reconciliations, but you know, a lot of times it's the benefits team that's really, you know, in there. And unfortunately, if they're doing VLOOKUPs and pivot tables, a lot of times they're pulling IT resources in, or it has to be very senior people on the benefits team that, you know, are, you know, trying to compare these different systems together. So once we have, you know, census information from the enrollment platform, and we have the payroll information and the carrier invoices, and COBRA, we can pull in COBRA if you have COBRA participants on the invoice. We can actually kind of represent the invoices here. You see each invoice is a line item and has its own unique name. And then what plan types are included in that. So where you're going to have, I'll just click on an invoice here. So where you're going to have multiple plan types, we have the ability to, if you want to reconcile just one plan type, you know, at a time, maybe just long-term disability, then we can just pull up the long-term disability records. So very, very easy to kind of use, and really nice to have the all the information kind of laid out here in a format that I think is pretty user-friendly. So we have the plan types, the carrier, kind of how the carrier names the plans as well. Then what the carrier invoice amount is. This is a payroll reconciliation, so we're going to look at the payroll transactions for the month, the coverage period of January 2023. So our platform is going to usually read the reports whenever your payrolls are processed, or every night. Sometimes if we have APIs, then we're accumulating that information. And then you're ready to go once you have the invoice in for the coverage period and your payrolls have been processed for the coverage period with the deductions and employer contributions, right? Because the invoice amount is going to have the total premium on it. So we were able to kind of get all that information in, and then very, very quickly then, as that information comes in real time, then our platform not only finds the variance and any kind of prior variances that are continuing to accumulate, but also the reason for the variance that when we're guessing here at the reason, but I'd say we're pretty accurate. So you can tell this is a good size employer, a little over 4,000 line items here, because, you know, they have maybe 1,300 employees, and each employee's got, you know, 3 or 4 plans. So the rows can add up pretty quickly. So, you know, we kind of guess whether we've got rounding issues, whether we've got we just don't know why. It doesn't look like there's a logical reason, because there's no timing difference. We can't detect that there's a new hire or a recently terminated employee. We also have then kind of the ability to filter based upon, you know, the status, whether we could auto match these, which are the ones that we've already resolved, or whether we just couldn't find a good match for the transaction. So that allows us to, you know, kind of cut down on the number of records that we're looking at. Let me go over to another master policy here. And here's a good example where I haven't really started. There's a dashboard here at the top, so I've got some statistics that kind of guide me through. You know, looks like I'm vastly overcollected for some reason as compared to payroll, and maybe there's a few employees that I've also undercollected from. So I don't know, maybe I've you know, there's some major timing differences, or I've got rates set up, you know, too high on my payroll system. Not sure why I would be so overcollected, but the whole point is we can also search on people, so I can, you know, take a look at, you know, particular employees. I can see, oh, there's a carrier amount, there's the payroll amount. Gosh, I've got a big variance. This looks like it could be, we've marked it as an enrollment, a timing difference, an enrollment in transit. So maybe it's a new hire. And as I kind of look at the plan balances, now this is a running ledger for every single employee on the platform for every single plan. So it really gets down to the nitty gritty of, how much did I deduct from payroll and how much or how much was an employer contribution. And this one looks like it's all employer contributed. So I've got, somebody who was hired in early December. So that means that if it's a list bill from the United Healthcare master plan, then there's probably this person got hired too late to get reflected on the December invoice, obviously, because December invoice probably got generated in late November. So here we've got somebody that we've had a December payroll deduction for, and even a January payroll deduction. And at the end of December, we didn't have an invoice yet for them. So that's why we said, oh, it's an enrollment in transit. And could be, we could agree with that, or we could leave it, or we can, mark it as something else. I've made some comments here, so, we can use the platform as, kind of a reminder system, a tickler system to go back and look at things. But if I look at the plan balance here down below, I can immediately tell that, oh, I took some January payroll deductions too. And then, oh, looks like, yes, the carrier came in January, and my January premium has got, I'm sure both December and January. And depending upon how the carrier bills out of its one line item or two line items, an adjustment record and a actual, invoice record for the current period, will depend upon how it shows up on our user interface here. But you can see now, my plan, for medical for this employee that's on the medical plan is a zero balance, which is what you want to see. So we keep track of these balances over time from data hire to the data termination, and you can sort it by plan year if you'd like, or filter it by plan year, those sorts of things. So there's lots of nice features. So I'm going to mark this as resolved. And as I do, you can see that automatically here, I've kind of resolved, one of my columns. And so I can kind of just close that. So as you go through and resolve these items, either, because we've matched the transaction automatically, or because, you've gone in and just marked it manually as resolved, that variance, on top here of resolved items and your variances at the beginning will equal each other. You're completed the reconciliation at that point. So that gives, the finance and accounting people, great backup to say, hey, here's the plan balances that should, be reflected someplace in our GL. And, the team's done a good job at going through, the things that, were variances and documenting why we believe those are variances. Maybe just a timing difference and the system caught it, and we'll catch it up next month. Or, hey, there were some real significant rate differences and we just got to go in and do the research of, maybe there's a payroll table that's set up incorrectly for deductions, or a plan that the carrier attached the wrong rate table, or maybe there's the COBRA remittances that are coming in, or haven't been updated from the last couple of years. We've got old rates for the COBRA administrator. So lots of different systems and plenty of blame to go around usually when things don't balance right. But it really allows very quickly for you to look at the variances, because the system, automatically will calculate those variances. Even if you're on a biweekly payroll, we'll take care of understanding what that payroll frequency is and how that's affecting, and we'll match that as a resolved transaction if it's just due to a payroll frequency difference. So that gives, I think, a much clearer picture of where your plan is at on any given month, any given year, especially. And it allows, if there are questions from payroll teams or from even an employee, you could look at the ledger balances and see, hey, here's the backup for the deductions, here's the backup for the carrier invoices. And it really solves a lot of technical questions that come up that, it's tough to shoot somebody a spreadsheet and just, kind of have them guess at what things mean. So it's a nice, clear way to, kind of communicate with within a company, and also if something comes up with your carrier as well too.
So Doug, I'm taking a quick look at the chats here. I don't see any questions, but then again, they've been very respectful and just listening to what you have to
Yeah.
say, which I think is wonderful. I do have a couple of really kind of off the wall questions, but again, let me put them out there. So I'm seeing that a lot of employers are trying to, again, go back to the world of benefits as being a very competitive edge. And so I'm watching employers absorb the costs of rising premiums, if you will.
Yeah.
So if I'm an employer who, God forbid, actually pays full fare for an employee, in other words, no charge to the employee for the health plans, it strikes me that your process would save me an inordinate amount of money. A lot of people say, well, the employees don't end up paying into this thing, so we'll just pay what the carrier asks us to do and we're done. I suspect you may have some clients that would say, no, I have to really audit that because it's coming out of my back pocket. Totally.
Yeah, and it's usually both ways too. What we find is that, um, yes, you're correct that the carrier, doesn't obviously care whether employees are contributing or not, or whether it's completely employer funded. But what we find too is on even self-funded plans where, the poor employer is not just paying the premium, they're paying for claims. So if they're not reconciling who's on their enrollment platform and, are they getting, people on and off the TPA feeds, right? I mean, it's an area I didn't even go into, but it's really, reconciliation can mean a lot of different things based upon whether your plans are, you know, fully insured and you get a list bill or they're self-bill or they're, you know, uh, self-funded, it's a self-funded plan. So, and, some of the biggest, I think, things that we've helped some of our clients with is when they have self-funded healthcare plans and, for whatever reason, they just haven't maintained their HRIS platform that closely, and they still have people who were on leave that, never return to work, and they have people that are, still they're paying claims on, and I mean big, six-figure a year claims with, and they're not even an employee.
Mm. Well, you
But yeah.
touched upon something in terms of the scenario that I'd like to explore a little bit. It's not uncommon that I see in our clients that you've got an external or TPA benefit system, an outsourced system. Your payroll system is internal, and you are actually providing an aggregation that is rarely done between those two entities for the company standpoint. It just strikes me as if I find myself in that kind of situation, or even that, an HR system and a payroll system separate, so the benefits is elsewhere. It strikes me that you're doing something that people struggle to under normal circumstances.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I mean, we're platform agnostic, so and a good way to think about that is, as you said, you can have, maybe two companies. Maybe your parent company is on ADP, and you've got a subsidiary company you just bought, or merged a group with, but they're still on maybe UKG, and you
Yeah.
need a way to offer benefits to those people, hopefully right away. And we become a very nice aggregation platform to allow for billing those plans back to the other employer to, allow you to reconcile those invoices when they come in with payroll to make sure that, you got all the reimbursements from the plan participants that, you might be entitled to if you don't pay 100%. So all of those things really, yes, and EDI feeds as well too. We can pull enrollment information from, various enrollment platforms and send one EDI feed to an insurance carrier. So having it disaggregated, so to speak, is a little bit of I think, an advantage for us from both the payroll and the enrollment platform, because that allows us to, pull all those data sources in, and we're not a competitor really to anyone. So I think it's pretty easy conversation.
I suspect that one of the absolute markets that you go after are people like, as Tony was mentioning, Zuman, a tiered client database that's got lots and lots and lots of people in it, different companies. you become a great tool for those kind of folks to deal with that.
Yeah, and it as I said, those are businesses too, which they really need to be on top of it because the margins are relatively thin and really based upon their margins, based upon the volumes that they process, they don't want to make any errors. So trying to help them, I think it's worked out okay. But I would also say that, as companies grow, there's obviously, times when you acquire companies or you have, divisions that spin off, but they are still part of your company. And all those things have, some integration that they may or may not, be on the same platforms at some point. So, yeah.
Very cool. So let me open up for very quick. Any questions from any? I see a hand going up, Melissa. You might as well unmute and go for it. Okay. Are you muted, Melissa? No. Go ahead and ask the question, please. Go ahead. No, it's not me. I hope it's not me. Are you guys hearing anything?
Not hearing
No.
anything, but I see the hand up as well.
Yeah,
Maybe
I see the hand up.
Maybe I'm the one who's got to.
Melissa, if you can hear me, go ahead and open up your microphone. Go ahead and ask the question. I don't see it in chat.
Just an FYI, I'm not sure I'm the only person, but the network has been very spotty for the entire presentation. But, maybe everybody else is better than me.
John, I can hear you. You were saying that the network seems to be a little spotty.
Yeah, I like that feedback. I've never experienced that problem on Teams.
It gaps, it's slow, it skips. And maybe me, but if there's other people who have the same problem, they may.
Yeah, let's ask the audience as a whole. I mean, are we having a problem with the network capabilities on Teams? I mean, this is the first time I'm using Teams in this Technology Review Council. So if it's not working out for anybody, I'll go back to GoToMeeting and count on them for a while. Anybody want to offer up something?
I can share. I have not had any problems the whole meeting.
Okay. Yeah, same here. But I am concerned that Melissa, I thought she had her hand up on this. Yeah, that's how I got. Yeah. So Melissa, if you do have a question, your hand is up. If you don't, I guess we can. Okay. Oh, I can hear you. Okay. Well, let me make. Yeah, your mic shows unmuted here too. If you don't mind typing a question in the chat, I'll relay that over to Doug and Tony. For it over in chat.
Doug, speaking to what Nov was talking about, Doug, what would you say are the top 3 errors that our clients deal with? Is it carrier billing off the wrong rate tables? What would you say are the top 3 that constantly dealing?
Yeah, I'd say that the biggest ones are COBRA administrators with the wrong rates. That's probably pretty significant. And then, not depending upon their own processes, whether they're terminating people, in time. So certain states have certain requirements for when you have to extend coverage to somebody if they're terminated, so many days after the end of the month. So there's timing issues with all of this. And so whether clients, remember those, and whether the managers really are out there in the field, and, somebody leaves, a location that's, in Texas or something like that, and the manager just doesn't know any better and waits a week to terminate somebody, it falls into the next month, all of a sudden, you could have to pay another month's worth of premium without having somebody even on payroll or even eligible for benefits.
Right.
So timing is, I'd say, a big part of it. And then just configuration, just general, you know, tables that are incorrectly configured because they don't really understand, you know, the plans themselves. Are probably the biggest ones. Yeah.
Any other questions from anyone else?
I don't see it, and I apologize that Melissa may have had a question, but I'm not seeing it coming back. And apparently her mic is unmuted, but we can't hear her. So my apologies to both Doug, Tony, and Melissa. Sorry for that.
Okay.
Let's see it.
All right.
I will ask. I mean, I have to say it this way, and I've been in the industry so long that I guess I can say this with some authority. It's rare when you find something that not only saves you time but money in HR. So I'll put it in that context.
It has a real ROI for our clients, no doubt.
It is. It is. I find this to be, I have to say, if there is a competitor, I have yet to see them. And I think that what you've done is probably put something in front of it. The dashboard and such is such a phenomenally great tool that I can reconcile. To your point, I'm not an accountant, so I'd probably be lost if you gave me an accounting report, but this is a pretty straightforward audit report and it looks pretty good. Melissa, there we go. Okay. Mentioned that the size of the average customer is about 2,000 employees. For smaller size companies, why might they not be seeing the value? I mean, I guess she's kind of asking the question, are you marketing at that level or when I go below that, am I not seeing the value? Is it population size that gives the ROI?
Great question. Doug, you or me?
Yeah, no, go ahead, Tony.
Well, I'll tell you, all the demos that we do, all the way down to a 200 employee company, they all want the software. But as you can imagine, a 30 employee company, we need to generate revenue as a company. So we're marketing towards the larger employers because it brings more revenue to us. And we have just the amount of integration time we do with a 2,000 employee company as we do with a 200. So to keep us from onboarding a bunch of 200 clients, we've kind of kept the pricing more in line with larger customers. It's our intent to come down market. So hopefully, Melissa, that answers your question. We could take on everybody, but we have some integration work to do at the beginning. So we're trying to go after some larger employees first and then come down market, if that makes sense.
I guess I would ask the audience, if you were sitting on, let's say, an outsourced system, we won't call it Zoom, but it could be, there's a lot of other outsourced systems, smaller systems that are dealing with it. Is it to the advantage of Tabulera to hear from your provider, and maybe they haven't heard of Tabulera, and that they would service you much better by having a tool like Tabulera in their world, i.e., we'll get the customers of these other outsourced companies to come to Tabulera and put on the pressure, if you will. Does that make sense in that context?
Yeah,
The power of
absolutely.
many, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. No, there's no question that most of the large payroll platforms have marketplaces, and the way we get into those marketplaces is that their clients come to us, and we then ultimately, with a couple of clients, we usually then approach them to become part of their marketplace. So it does make us understand probably their platforms a little bit better. We don't need the cooperation of the payroll or enrollment platforms or the COBRA administrators. As long as we can get the information from a PDF or Excel spreadsheet, we're fine. But it does make it a lot easier for the client when we can use API structures and SFTP and those sorts of things behind the scenes that keep things updated and flowing, information flowing.
You may have mentioned this, Doug, and my apologies if I missed it, but do you have some brokerage firms that have their own internal systems as your clients because they're missing the payroll side of that?
Yeah,
So-
it's a great question. We didn't touch on that, but yes, the short answer is yes. Brokerage firms, especially around consolidated invoicing, are using the application because they want to act as a common remitter for the premiums, and that they use it as a differentiation for their brokerage firm in terms of the services they want to provide to their clients. So they, some of them use it in order to make, what they had to do on Excel spreadsheets previously to be much, much more efficient.
Yeah. Hopefully that then results in less charge to their clients, of course.
Yeah, well, one
Yeah, right.
brokerage
We can only hope.
in particular, no, there's one brokerage that's going to white label our services to provide it on behalf to 150 clients doing reconciliation. And this they're using it to get more efficient on their internal team, has 15 people doing the reconciliations now. So they're hoping that they can onboard more clients with our tool in the background.
Very nice. Very nice. Bobby, I see you're typing. I don't know if you have a question out there, but let me ask a question to the two of you. So we've seen now two very distinct iterations of Tabulera. What's on the roadmap, if you can tell us a little bit? What's the future look like for us as
Yeah.
consumers?
Top secret.
Well, there's no question, no, that the easier, as I said, the easier we make the integrations with companies, the enrollment platforms, the payroll platforms, Cobra systems, the easier it is on the client to sign up and to ultimately operate the platform on a monthly basis, opposed to either us uploading files or the client. So that's where we're spending a good deal of our resources is to we have API structures, we have single sign-on structures. So that's where we're spending our efforts, is making sure we can tightly integrate as we go forward. It'll just make, I think, a better user experience. There are other areas outside of benefits per se that require the same sort of I would say general employer programs that require a lot of auditing, a lot of scrutiny. And so we've done some of those, but that's probably one of the other areas that we can help with. So those are, how to bundle benefits together into packages that, some of our clients have asked us to help on the billing side do that sort of things for managing general underwriters and those sorts of things. So that's another area where we have some focus on.
I think you're definitely, shall we say, hitting some new heights in this sector of reconciliation. Yeah, I'm looking at Bobby's comments. I'll read them to you because I think she's being very complimentary to you. Says Bobby says, I agree with this approach. Let's see, it's going faster than I can read. This is a good approach. I think it's excellent because you have a target and you're not trying to do everything and be everything to everybody. So that sounds like a good, shall we say, management perspective and a good direction that you've taken, Doug. There are a lot of benefit packages out there. This approach is a little different and solid. You can take that quote to the bank.
we'll quote Bobby on that.
So
Thank
Melissa
you.
has got a question here. It says, when there is a payroll correction, who handles the notification to the employee?
Typically, what we find is that if there was a missed deduction, let's say that the employee is running what we call a planned balance in the ledger, then we have interface files that can go back to payroll, but kind of interestingly, the payroll people don't like those because they want to have very detailed reasons and reason notes. So we typically kick off, like an email on the platform and let somebody fill it out, all the details of what should happen on the next payroll. So there's some explanation that goes usually from the benefits team to the payroll person. The payroll person probably, in a corporate environment, probably, communicates to the person's manager or communicates directly with the person that, hey, there's going to be an extra payroll deduction. We didn't catch you on the first, there was a 0-day wait. We didn't catch you on the first month because you hadn't elected yet, or whatever the circumstances are. Or, you elected and we didn't catch the first payroll. So we're going to deduct it over a few payroll periods. So you can make up that contribution.
To be specific, Melissa, it will not be Tabulera reaching out to the employee. So we help identify variance if there's a payroll, there's a variance that happened to the benefits team, but Tabulera does not interface with clients' employees.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you talked about is something I'd ran into a long time ago called arrears processing. which I think
Yes.
a lot of sense. God forbid payroll
Yeah.
systems got to that benefit. So,
Yeah.
anything else from the audience? I'd love to, if you've got comments you'd like to include, as Bobby did, in terms of the appeal of this particular solution. Please feel free to unmute and let Doug and Tony know that you're high on my list. You know that. I think you guys have got a very, 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 I want to say, innovative approach to this. And it's, like I say, there's rare places in HR where you're actually saving time and, I hate to say it, but making money in the long run. You're going to make HR profitable one of these days.
Thanks. No, we appreciate the time with the group today, and we're wishing everybody the best here in 2023.
Looks like Keith may be typing a question out there, and let me see if that's come through.
Melissa just had
Yeah,
another one.
as Melissa said, when you're ready to focus on the small to medium business, there's a real market waiting for you. Nicely
Big
done.
market. Yeah, it's got the biggest segment, of course, obviously. Back from
Yes.
my ADP and Trinet sales days, SMB for ADP was huge. So yeah, we certainly look forward to getting to that space, no doubt.
Yeah, and Keith's comment is very similar to Melissa's, and it's a nice product. I can understand the market you're targeting. However, if you decide to create a plug and play, that would be awesome. And I think Keith was volunteering to be your first pilot customer.
Awesome.
He'll
All
shoot
right.
me for that later. All right. Well, gentlemen, we are very close to the hour. Again, thank you very, very much for a very entertaining session. We really appreciate it. Certainly to my Technology Review Council, I appreciate your attendance and your continuing support. You'll see many more vendors coming through. Not quite as entertaining as this one was, but of course, what can I say? We're in good shape. And other than that, I'm going to end the recording here and we'll go from there. And Doug, if you've got a moment to stay a little bit longer, I'd love to just chat with you.
Thank you for
Thanks,
having
Noah.
us. Thank you.
Yeah,
All righty.
thank you for having us,
Everyone
Doug.
stay well. We'll
All
be
right.
talking soon.
All
Take
right,
care.
bye now.
Recording to stop.
I couldn't hear. It was asking Doug, you and I, Tabulera to stick around, or somebody else?
Oh, no, I was asking the two of you,
Oh,
if
okay.
you don't mind stopping.
Sure.
Yeah, there we
Yeah.
go.